So it's been a little bit of a rainy day here today, so we're not going to get to smoke anything or grill anything today, but we can make one of the ultimate sides to go with any barbecue, from pulled pork to brisket or even tacos. We're going to make some pickled red onions today. So, welcome back to Griffin Grills. I am Griffin. And if you would, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you'll be up to date every time we do a video. Like I said before, this is a great side dish slash condiment that pairs up well with lots of good barbecue. Everything from pulled pork to tacos, even some barbecue places when you order brisket, they'll actually have some sitting on the side with some loaf bread. And it's kind of like just a little condiment or garnish, however you want to look at it. But it tastes fantastic, and it's easy to make, and you probably already have everything you need in the kitchen to make it. So let's go ahead and see what we got to work with. So, as you can see, I've got 4 red onions right here. I've also got 4 mason jars, 4 sets of rings and lids for the mason jars, and I've got a pot on our stove here that we're going to bring the water up to a boil. We're going to use 4 cups of water, 4 cups of white vinegar, and 4 tablespoons of kosher salt. So it's probably stuff you already have in your pantry already, minus the onions. So if you do have to run out to the store, this may be the only thing you have to get other than the jars. But once you buy 1 set of jars, you can use them and then wash them out real good and use them the next time, if you can get them back from people that you give them to. So I'm going to go ahead and cut up some of this onion, and I'm going to start with my biggest one first and see how far I get. I want to make sure I've got enough onions to fill up all the jars. Might could do it just in these 3, but I got 1 as a backup. So let me get this cut up, and we'll be back in just a second. Alright, and we are back. I didn't have to use my small onion, but it was good that I had it just in case. I can use that for something else. I did have to throw away half of the second largest onion I had, because it had a pretty deep gash in it that I didn't see when I bought it, and it dried out a little bit, and I knew it wasn't going to be good. So just toss that to the side. So that was about, I'd say, 2.5 medium-sized onions. Maybe the 1 large onion and 2 medium onions will yield you about 4 jars. And I used a mandolin to get mine sliced up real thin. If you're talented enough, you could probably do that with a knife, but the mandolin made it such easy work. And you just want to put it in the jars all the way up to the top. You want it to be just a little bit firm to the touch, but you don't want to cram them all down in there. We've got to have some voids for the water and the vinegar to seep into. And we're going to season it up today with some of this Twisted Q Insane State cracked black pepper seasoning. You could use pickling seasoning, but when I looked at the ingredients on this, most all the ingredients in this are already found in pickling season anyways, and it gives us a little extra barbecue flavor, which can't hurt anything. So we'll go ahead and get our stove eye turned on, and we're just going to let the water come up to a boil. I got 4 cups of just regular water in here. Then we're going to take and add 4 cups of just plain white distilled vinegar. You use it a lot in canning, pickling, just distilled white vinegar. A 32-ounce bottle, 4 cups exactly. So we'll let the water come up to boil, then we'll turn off the heat, add in our vinegar, and then we're going to do 4 tablespoons of just kosher salt. Make sure to stir that up, get it all dissolved, the salt dissolved into the water and the vinegar. And then we're going to pour it over the onions with our seasoning on top of the onions. Give those a shake, help everything mix up, incorporate. Leave these sitting out for about an hour just to cool down. And then you can store them in your refrigerator and keep them there. And the color will change over time. But let's get the water boiling, and I'll bring you back when we start pouring up into our jars. Alright, we've got a nice rolling boil going on our water, so we're going to kill the heat. It didn't take very long, maybe about 5 minutes for that. And we're just going to pour our white vinegar right in. And while it's still hot, we're going to do about 4 tablespoons of coarse kosher salt. I just use the palm of my hand. And I think that's 4. Now give this a stir to get all that salt incorporated in with that water and that vinegar, and as soon as it's all distilled down and you don't see the salt anymore, we can start scooping it out, pouring it into our jars. If you think you're really talented, you can just pick this up and pour them in. I'm going to use the measuring cup just to be on the safe side. So let me get this all incorporated together, and we'll bring you back when we start filling the jars. Alright, my water looks clear now, so we're just going to use our measuring cup and scoop some up. And you just want to pour it right over the top of our seasoning that's already in the jars. And we're just going to make sure we fill it all the way to the top. Go ahead and do the next one. And this being a quick pickling method, you don't have to like boil the jars. You probably could, but for no more than what this is, you can just pour this in here straight hot off the stove and just let it sit for about an hour, and that'll pickle it up real nice. Looks like I'm going to have to pour it into my measuring cup now. I can hit that wide mouth, I can't hit these. Just top everything off. Alright, and we had a little left over. Now we're just going to place our rings on top. Alright, so we got our lids on. Now it's time to put our rings on. I just loosely tighten them, because you probably will get a little spillage, especially if the jars are super tight like mine are. Packed full of good oniony, pickledy goodness. Just be real careful. This is hot. And just get those lids tight as you can. Alright. Now, all of the seasoning is up top, so we're just going to give it a shake. And we're just going to let that sit for an hour here on the stovetop, then move it over into our fridge. Alright, so we had a little snafu. I had 2 jars that didn't seal properly. If you notice this one, you can run your hand or finger across the top of the lid and it's pushed down. So I just took that extra brine I had and the juice from in these and brought it back up to a boil. I'm going to transfer it back over into my measuring cup. And this is why I don't pour from the pot, because it's a little hard to control that way. That should be enough to seal 2 jars. So we'll just bring our jars back out, top them off. And it could have been any number of things that caused it not to seal. It could have been a deformation in the lid. Could have been the top of the jars weren't completely clean, like if any dust or anything gets in there, or even a grain from the peppers sits on top of there and prevents that seal from being airtight, that could have caused the problem. But we can at least check and see now if a double brine like this, double cooking the brine, makes that big a difference, as opposed to just a single let it run. And I think I may know my problem. I think when I filled it up just a little too much, and one of those little peppercorns could have gotten in between my seal and the lid and caused it to not fully seal up, because the heat coming off of this will actually pull those lids down. So here's one that came out okay. It's down. You can tap on it, run your finger across it. These have a little give to them. So I'm about to let these sit for about an hour. This one's ready to go in our fridge. And these are some I made the other day that you can see that we've already kind of gotten into. So let's taste some of these and see what we think. So these were some I made the other day, and we've already been kind of getting into them. But I'm going to go ahead and taste it and let you know what I think. There we go. There's a little bit. It's crunchy like a pickle. It's got a little bit of heat for the red onion. Definitely goes good with barbecue, brisket, tacos. Possibilities are endless with something like this. So just having this in your arsenal to be able to pull out as a good condiment or even a side for most of your barbecue gives it a different profile flavor and just makes it a little bit more accessible. Maybe you don't like pickles, or maybe cucumbers give you heartburn. These red onions didn't give me any heartburn, didn't give my wife any, and I don't know, they just go good with barbecue. So definitely give this recipe a whirl. If you have problems with your lids not sealing, just wash them off. Make sure you got the tops completely dry. I think that's what the problem was, is I might have had too much liquid in the jars, and when I put my lid on there, it kind of spilled over on some. And I think just those pepper grains getting in between that seal and the glass jar caused it to fail. No big problem. Save your excess brine if you have any. Reheat it. Add the brine from the jars that didn't seal back into a pot. Just bring it up to a boil real quick. That could have been a problem too. I could have not had my brine hot enough to actually seal the jars. But I'm going to mark these because I'm curious to see what that double boil brine tastes like after it sits in the refrigerator for a few days. Because you will notice this has kind of a pinkish hue color to it. These look a little bit more opaque, and the onions are still white, whereas these pretty much turned a solid pink. And I'll be curious to see if that does make a difference. Maybe I'll start double boiling my brine every time. Don't know until you try, just like you don't know if this is going to be any good until you try it. But now you know how to make it, so go make some for yourself.